Welcome to this edition of News Today, a series in which we discuss and briefly analyze the important news of the day. Let's have a look at today's main headlines. The Ministry of Health and Family Welfare has sought public comments on the draft National Pharmacy Commission Bill 2023. The International Space Station completes its 25 years. A recent report highlights that Facebook, Instagram Reels influenced 80% of Indians to purchase beauty products. The Oxfam releases report titled Climate Equality, a Planet for the 99%. 40 workers got trapped in a tunnel collapse in Uttarakhand's Uttarkashi. The UN Environment Programme releases the Emission Gap Report 2023. Starting with the first main news, the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare has sought public comments on the draft National Pharmacy Commission Bill 2023. The bill aims to repeal the Pharmacy Act of 1948 and set up the National Pharmacy Commission with head office at New Delhi. Let's have a look at the key provisions of the bill. The bill proposes that the National Pharmacy Commission shall consist of a chairperson, which is to be appointed by the central government, along with 13 ex officio members and 14 part-time members. The bill also says that the chairperson shall be a pharmacy academician and a registered pharmacist having proven administrative capacity. Plus, he or she should be possessing a postgraduate degree in pharmacy profession from any university with experience of not less than 15 years in the pharmacy field, out of which at least 10 years shall be as a pharmacy leader in pharmacy education. The bill also proposes that the central government shall constitute 3 boards, namely Pharmacy Education Board, Pharmacy Assessment and Rating Board, and the Pharmacy Ethics and Registration Board, which will function under the National Pharmacy Commission. The bill also proposes to set up the Pharmacy Advisory Council. It shall be constituted by the central government to advise the Commission on measures to enhance equitable access to pharmacy education, training, and research. Before we conclude this news, let's understand the significance of this bill. The bill aims to improve access to quality and affordable pharmaceutical education and seeks to ensure availability of adequate and high-quality pharmacy professionals. It also seeks to promote equitable healthcare by making pharmacy services accessible to all citizens. Plus, it provides a transparent assessment of pharmacy institutions and facilitating maintenance of a pharmacy register for India. In another news, the International Space Station completes its 25 years. On November 20th, 1998, the Zarya module launched aboard Russian Proton rocket from Kazakhstan to form the cornerstone of the International Space Station, or the ISS. The ISS is a large spacecraft in orbit around the Earth. It serves as a home where crews of astronauts and cosmonauts live. The space station is also a unique science laboratory. It is a partnership between European countries represented by ESA, United States NASA, Japan, Canada, and Russia's Roscosmos. It orbits the Earth at an average altitude of approximately 250 miles in every 90 minutes. It has been continuously occupied since the year November 2000. The ISS weighs almost 400 tons and covers an area as big as football pitch. Given its size, it would have been impossible to build the space station on the Earth and then launch it into the space in one go. So, the ISS was taken into the space piece by piece and gradually built in the orbit. This assembly required more than 40 missions. The significance of ISS lies in the fact that it allows crew members to do research that could not be done anywhere else. Also, it allows for critical research in fluids, combustion, life support systems, and radiation environment, which is needed for future human space exploration. Having said this, let's have a look at India's space station plans. As per the ISRO's chairman, India's proposed space station is envisaged to weigh 20 tons and serve as a facility where astronauts can stay for 15 to 20 days and would be placed in an orbit around 400 kilometers above the Earth. Additionally, the Prime Minister of India directed that India should now aim for setting up the Bharatiya Antariksh Station, or the Indian Space Station, by the year 2035.
Moving on, a recent report titled MetaGWI Beauty Report 2023 has highlighted that Facebook and Instagram Reels influenced 80% of Indians to purchase beauty products. The report has highlighted the monumental impact of social media on consumer behavior. So let's discuss in detail how social media influences the behavior of consumers. According to the report, social media helps in discovery of new products. 47% of surveyed consumers discovered new products through social media reels. Social media has also brought shifts in consumer preferences. A 15% increase in online purchases has been observed post-pandemic by beauty buyers, which currently stands at 68%. Further, virtual tryouts through augmented reality and other related technologies have made it easy to evaluate alternatives while buying products online. Also, consumer interactions shape their psychological, emotional, and behavioral outlooks, ultimately influencing their purchasing behaviors. Moreover, customer reviews act as electronic word of mouth, helping consumers in their purchasing decisions. Now, the question is, why are these trends so concerning? This massive impact of social media on consumer behavior can promote impulsive buying and lead to targeted advertisements. Also, it can increase debt and financial stress among consumers and also contribute to environmental degradation due to excessive consumerism. Further, it violates privacy through consumer profiling. So, what can be done to limit the impact of social media on consumer behavior? First and foremost, social media platforms should provide clear information on content curation, moderation, and algorithms to bring transparency in their working. We also need to strengthen antitrust rules for both platform providers and social media influencers. Lastly, social media influencers should disclose their material interests. Seeing the impact of social media, in January 2023, the Department of Consumer Affairs released endorsement guidelines for celebrities and social media influencers.
Moving on, the Oxfam releases a report titled Climate Equality, a Planet for the 99%. The report emphasizes on the climate breakdown and extreme inequality as twin challenges facing humanity. Let's have a look at the key findings of the report. The report says that in 2019, the super rich 1% were responsible for 16% of the global carbon emissions, which is equivalent to emissions of the poorest 66% of humanity. Also, since the 1990s, the super rich 1% burned through twice as much of the carbon budget as the poorest half of humanity combined. Additionally, the emissions of 1% are said to be over 22 times more than the safe limit in 2030. Plus, the emissions of the super rich 1% in 2019 are enough to cause 1.3 million deaths due to heat. Having said this, there are certain policy recommendations in this regard. Firstly, the radical increase in equality. The governments must implement proven policies to dramatically drive down the gap between the richest and the rest. Secondly, the fast and just transition away from fossil fuels. For this, there is a need to implement a new wave of taxes on the corporations and billionaires to drive down the emissions dramatically and fund transition. Thirdly, a new purpose for a new age. Herein, the need is to prioritize human and planetary well-being over endless profit, extraction, and consumption.
In another news, 40 workers got trapped in a tunnel collapse in Uttarakhand's Uttarkashi. The incident happened in the under construction Silkyara Badkot in Uttarakhand due to a landslide that demolished its entrance. The Silkyara Badkot tunnel will connect Yamunotri on the south end to Dharasu on the north end. It is part of Char Dham all-weather road project. The tunnel is being built in an area comprising limestone and other soft rocks that have a tendency to collapse. Now the question is, why Himalayas are more prone to landslides? If we talk about natural reasons, earthquakes resulting from tectonic activity can trigger landslides, and heavy rainfall can saturate the soil, weakening rock formations. Also, climate change-induced warming can lead to permafrost thawing, making the region more prone to landslides. Anthropogenic reasons for landslides in the Himalayan region include the construction of dams, roads, and other significant infrastructure which changes the natural stability of slopes. And other activities like deforestation, irrigation, and mining also cause landslides. Now, some experts have also pointed out that unlike the Alps, the Himalayas are not suitable for such construction activities. So let's find out the major differences between the Himalayas and the Alps. The Himalayas were formed around 40 to 50 million years ago and are relatively younger than the Alps, which formed around 65 million years ago. The Himalayas are a result of the collision between Indian and Eurasian plates, while the Alps form due to the collision between the African and Eurasian plates. Tectonic activity is still ongoing in the Himalayas, making it a seismic region, while the Alps are also tectonically active but they have less seismic activity. Lastly, the Himalayas have a young, rugged terrain with deep valleys and high peaks, while the Alps have older, more rounded mountains with U shaped valleys. Moving on to the next news, the United Nations Environment Programme has released the Emission Gap Report 2023. The United Nations Environment Programme, or UNEP, headquartered in Nairobi, Kenya, was founded in the year 1972 under a UN General Assembly resolution shortly after the Stockholm Conference on Human Environment. Its objective is to help humanity foster climate stability, live in harmony with nature, and forge a pollution-free future in line with the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. The UN Environment Assembly is its governing body with universal membership encompassing all 193 UN member states, including India. UNEP also releases other important reports like the Adaptation Gap Report and Global Environment Outlook. Coming back to the news, this is the 14th Emission Gap Report, which tracks our progress in limiting global warming well below 2 degrees Celsius and pursuing 1.5 degrees Celsius in line with the Paris Agreement. So first, let's understand the term emission gap. It is the difference between the estimated global GHG emissions resulting from full implementation of the latest nationally determined contributions and global GHG emissions under least cost pathways aligned with the long-term temperature goal of the Paris Agreement. Coming back, let's take a look at the key highlights of the report. This year, 86 days have been recorded with temperatures exceeding 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. Global greenhouse gas emissions increased by 1.2% from 2021 to 2022, with fossil fuel combustion and industrial processes being main contributors. The report highlights the highly unequal distribution of current and historical emissions. Globally, the 10% of the population with highest income accounted for 48% of the emissions. Moreover, the report estimates that global warming will be limited to 3 degrees Celsius if the current policies continue. The report also provided some important findings related to India. GHG emissions across the G20 increased by 1.2% in the year 2022, with increases in China, India, Indonesia, and the USA, but decreases in Brazil, EU, and Russia. According to the report, India to date has only contributed 5% of the warming. Also, India has an 8% implementation gap between current policies and the pledges under nationally determined contributions. Now let's have a look at today's place in news, which is the country Argentina with the capital Buenos Aires. The country is in news because Javier Milei recently won Argentina's presidential elections. Argentina is a country in South America covering most of the southern portion of the continent. It is bounded by Chile in the south and the west, Bolivia and Paraguay in the north, and Brazil, Uruguay, and the Atlantic Ocean in the east. Now let's take a look at the geographical features of the country. The terrain of the country varies from the rich plains of the Pampas in the northern half, flat to rolling plateau of Patagonia in the south, and rugged Andes along the western border. Its highest point is Cerro Aconcagua, and its major rivers are Paraná, Paraguay, and Uruguay.
As we conclude today's main news, let's have a look at some quick updates. According to a recent IMD update, the cyclone storm Midhili, after crossing the Bangladesh coast, weakened into a deep depression and later into a depression. A cyclonic storm is a cyclonic disturbance in which the maximum average surface wind speed is in the range of 34 to 47 knots. The World's Children's Day is celebrated every year on November 20th to promote international togetherness and improving children's welfare. On this day, the UN General Assembly adopted Declaration of the Rights of the Child in 1959 and the Convention on the Rights of the Child in 1989. The President of India inaugurated the Eklavya Model Residential Schools in Odisha. The Eklavya Model Residential Schools were started in 1997-98 to impart quality education to scheduled tribe children in remote areas to enable them to avail opportunities in high and professional education courses and get employment in various sectors. The International Conference cum Exhibition on Aerospace and Aviation in 2047 is being organized to commemorate 75 years of excellence of the Aeronautical Society of India. The Aeronautical Society of India is the principal society in India serving the professionals in areas of aeronautics, aerospace and aviation. The scientists have recently discovered nitrogen-9 nuclei which contains 7 protons and 2 neutrons. It is an unusually high proton to neutron ratio. As per a new study, a new layer called E prime layer at the outermost part of the Earth's core is a result of surface water penetrating deep into the planet. This alters the composition of the metallic liquid core's outermost region. The 54th International Film Festival of India commenced in Panji, Goa. Since its inception in 1952, it provides a single platform for filmmakers and industry professionals to have access to cinema from across the world. At the 42nd edition of India International Trade Fair in New Delhi, the Jamdani Sari has been showcased. Jamdani is a vividly patterned sheer cotton fabric traditionally woven on a handloom by craftspeople and apprentices around Dhaka, Bangladesh. Before we go, it's time to put your knowledge to the test in today's segment of Test Your Learning. Thank you for joining us. We hope you have enjoyed this edition of News Today. To get the answer to today's quiz and to download the PDF of News Today, make sure to check out the links in the description below.